Successful people learn how to make their mind work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast.
Hey everybody, David Nagel here. Today, my guest is Kelly Bandes, the writer and comedian best known for her popular Instagram and TikTok videos, satirizing everything from millennial motherhood to social media culture. Whether she's hosting a not at all Outlander support group or speaking up about things that really matter, Kelly's mission is to always empower and lift up other women through community, inclusivity, and laughter. Today, we're here to talk about her new book, Rookie Mistakes, Grown-Ups Field Guide to Getting Your Act Together, which my understanding is available now, right?
It is, yeah, as of July 19th.
I had the pleasure of going through it this way.
Whoa, that's elite level status right there. That's a tough read on loose leaf paper.
Well, welcome to the Successful Mind Podcast. Let's start off here by telling me what inspired this book, because this is hysterical.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad for you to be here.
Thanks. What inspired this is I have found that some of the toughest, darkest times in my life I found a way through them through laughter. I'm from the Northeast, so we do a lot of self-deprecating humor up there. And I wanted to offer that to other people. I do a lot of satire and skits online, and the most common feedback I get is, I was having a really rough day, thanks for the laugh. Or I'm going through a really tough time and your video just made me smile this morning. And so I thought, man, if I could do this through written word, wouldn't that be amazing? So that was sort of the inspiration behind it.
When you started off doing videos, being funny, was that the intention was it focused on people that were having a hard time, or why did you start doing that?
No, not really. I mean, I feel like we're all kind of always having a hard time.
Lately, I would agree.
Yeah. So it was not intentional, but it sort of grew to be that. I'm someone who, I mean, you've read the book, so you know I've been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety since I was 11 or 12. And so I always find that's a great way to cope. But I didn't really know that other people did too. So What I've found in sort of building a community this way is that's how a lot of us are making it through the day. So it wasn't the impetus for it, but it has sort of become that. Gotcha.
So you had this idea that you thought maybe it would help other people because of the comments that you were getting about your videos. But then how did you get it to a book? Because I mean, this isn't just a light book. It's not, something that's like 20 pages. This is substantial. I was actually really surprised.
Oh.
But it's a page turner. It's hard to put down. The great stories are fantastic. The humor's great. Well, how did you come about? How did you pick this as a topic to cover?
Sure. Well, thank you for saying that. So, my background, my undergraduate degree is in journalism. So I've always been really interested in being a writer, being a storyteller, being someone who could get people to turn the pages, read below the fold.
Okay.
And so I've always had a passion for that. I am a failed mommy blogger from way back, was not good at it, but I had something in me that wanted to create something on the page, something that people could read and be like, oh, I see myself in that story. Even though I wasn't, killing my own guinea pig, I see myself as a young girl in that story. And so I think my journalistic roots, wanting to make people feel like they're in the action, I think that's kind of where that comes from.
Okay. Let me just share. Can I share some of the chapter?
I would love for you to.
That'd be all right. So so this is what I mean. When I first got this, because we couldn't get a hard copy of it, and then we had to postpone the interview, I thought, and I'll just show everybody this here if I can pull this apart. I thought, so we printed this off, right? My assistant printed this off for me, and I started going down the chapters, and on the first page, it was chapter 1 through 12, right? I did not realize that there was a second page that goes to chapter 27. And then there's a third page, which is that chapter 31. So it is, like I said, it's not a small book, but let me give you some of these chapters. Chapter 1 is called Size 6. Is it 6 times?
Size 6X.
6X. Size 6X.
Yeah.
Oshkosh Magosh, chapter 2, Guinea Pig Heaven, The Fire, One Star Kiss, Trigger Warning, Intrusive Thoughts with asterisks on that one. An Ox with Braces, Sex Negative, Smirnoff Sprints, Hope and Change, Fenway Ambassador, Being Wally. It's been 86 years, No Shoes, No Problems, Pinhead, Pontoon Tinder, First Steps. And that's just 17. I'm just going to give them a little bit, like, if you just go by that, you could tell that this is going to be an interesting read, right?
Yeah.
How's the feedback been on the book so far? Have you done a lot of interviews? What are you getting? Yeah,
I mean, I'm getting a lot of really great feedback. If anyone has anything negative to say, they're keeping it to themselves, which I appreciate. But yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out. And again, it's a lot of the mental health stuff that I talk about in the book, people that have been maybe silently struggling with something like that, or maybe more publicly struggling with it, just knowing that it feels good to know they're not alone, and that to talk about mental health and mental wellness, it doesn't always have to be super heavy. It doesn't always have to be heady and depressing. It can be light and uplifting, and not a super self-helpy, here are the things you need to do to live your best life. It's, we're walking through this one day at a time together, and it doesn't always have, sometimes I feel like it can feel like a little bit of a slog when I'm reading about it, but hopefully this feels a little bit lighter.
Is this your first book?
It's my first book.
It's your first book. I don't think it's going to be your last book.
I hope not.
that is a hell of a
God's ears. Book. I hope not.
Well, it's a great first book. What if I'm going to ask you, pick a story that you'd like to share with us out of the book? Something that, I mean, anything. What's your favorite story in the book?
My favorite story in the book is the chapter called Oshkosh Magosh, which is the story of, it doesn't even sound like a story, but the story of my dad bringing me to my first Major League Baseball game. And I wanted to dive into that story a little bit because of growing up in the 90s. It was such a, boys over here, girls over here. I need to be with my Easy Bake Oven, watching Disney princess cartoons, and my brothers are out collecting salamanders and, getting to do the fun, exciting stuff. Right. And in the book, I talk a little bit about how my dad comes home from work one day with these 2 Red Sox tickets, and he is so excited to take my younger brother. And my brother wants nothing to do with this. He's like, baseball's boring. I'm not into it. I'm going to go, round up some tadpoles and do that.
Your brother says baseball's boring.
Sorry?
Your brother.
My brother says baseball's boring. He wants nothing to do with it. He still wants nothing to do with it.
Okay.
But in the book, I share a little bit about how I sort of expected my dad to be like, all right, well, I'm going to call a buddy. I'm just going to call another guy to go to the game with, or I have another younger brother. Maybe he's going to take the other younger brother. But instead, he takes me, which felt like this, golden ray coming down on me. Now I'm the chosen one, even though I'm a girl. I get to go to this game. And what came out of that was this lifelong love of sports and baseball, and this bond that created with my dad. Really? And I talk about later in the book, I end up getting hired by the Boston Red Sox, and it sort of like changes the trajectory of my whole life, which I feel like began in that very moment where my dad was like, I'm not going to call another guy. I'm not going to force one of my sons to go with me because this is a boy thing. I'm going to take my daughter. And it really like changed our lives in this one little story.
So you didn't know that you liked sports up until that point?
I didn't really. No, I didn't. I mean, I was only in 2nd grade. So I had, I played town rec sports, and I didn't really have a desire to go to the game. I did want to just hang out with my dad. And so to get to do that and for it to create such a bond between us was, an incredible bonus.
Where did you get the insight? Like, you have, first of all, you're funny. You got a great sense of humor. You've got a real cool lilt to everything, but where did you get this insight from? Because I know people, I mean, I have read books of people that are probably 3 times your age that don't have, that seemingly don't have the kind of insight in this, nor do people have, I think it's difficult for people to look for the humor that you seem to be able to pull out of these situations.
Oh, that's a very nice thing to say.
Were you funny when you were little?
I wanted to be funny very desperately. I come from a very funny family. I'm probably the least funny person in my family.
Come on.
No, I mean, I will, you'll have to come to our next family gathering because I'm not blowing smoke. I probably was funny, but I really desperately wanted to be funny. I think it wasn't until I kind of dropped that desperation that the actual humor and professional comedy started to like bubble to the surface. As far as the insight goes, I would credit probably my mom for that. And I'm a big follower of Father Richard Rohr. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Not familiar
at all. He is a Franciscan friar, and along the lines of like Thomas Merton. I don't know if you are familiar with him either, but
yeah.
But anyway, that's where I get a lot of my deeper thinking from, for lack of a better term.
Really? Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Do you have do you have an intention with this book? Is there an intention for the public? What is your secret wish that this book does?
My secret wish, it's like, I don't want to say my secret wish. No, my biggest wish for this book is that it would make people laugh. I think as a parent, as someone my age, I'm in my late 30s, it's really hard to take time for yourself and read a book. Like that's like, you just put that on the back burner. You're just kind of like getting through each day. So I wanted this to be a joy for someone to pick up and read, and just this sense of accomplishment I get when I finish a book. Like I just wanted to give that to someone in a pleasurable way.
Are you doing audio? Are you going to do an audiobook?
There's an audiobook available.
There is. Do you read it yourself?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Good.
Yes. No, it was so hard. I had no idea how hard that would be. My husband's a former professional musician, so I was having him give me like breathing tips and things to do in the studio, but it's really very difficult.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No.
Were you able to bring I didn't listen to it, so I don't know yet, but I really would like to listen to it because I want to see, were you able to bring your funny personality to it that you do in your videos?
I hope so. I've gotten good feedback from it. I mean, listening to the sound of your own voice is like nails on a chalkboard.
I know.
I was only able to listen to a little bit. So I can't really tell you if it's good or not. I have heard from people who've written me and said that they really enjoyed it. And it was like being able to do like a deep scroll on my social media. Like it felt like just hanging out, which was, definitely how I wanted it to feel.
Yeah. Well, most of the people that I come across, they can't stand it when somebody else reads their book. And my first book, that's what I did. I didn't have time to go into the studio when it got published, so I had somebody else doing it. And for 10 years now, I keep saying, I'm going to go into the studio and I'm going to do it. I'm going to actually do it myself. But even if a person doesn't have a particularly attractive voice, which is not you, your voice is fantastic. I mean, I've never said I'd rather just have a professional actually read the book. And like I thought, because people hear you, right? I mean, not everybody that writes a book do people get to actually hear what their voice sounds like. Yeah. But because you're on social media, people get to hear you. So it would be really weird if you didn't read it. So I'm glad you did.
Yes, yeah. But to go back to your question about my hope for the book, I'm sorry I kind of
it's okay.
A circuitous route to that. I think I wanted to send the message that you're never too old to change your mind, that we kind of start in one place. And I think a lot of times we get really stuck there, myself included. But to be able to go throughout the entire course of your life with an open mind, be available and open to new ideas, and changing your mind completely. Because I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I feel like people get so mired down in their camp. And to be able to
say more about that. What do you mean they get mired? What do you mean they get mired down in their camp? Explain.
Well, I know how I think about things. I have my moral tenets and how I believe about things. Those things probably are not going to change, right?
Right.
But I have been so guilty of getting, putting my flag, staking my claim on certain things that I can't hear anything else. I get in an echo chamber and I don't want to hear any other ideas. I don't want a dialogue. I just want to be right. And there are some things about which I will not bend, but there are other things that, what am I doing by screaming into the void to other people who agree with me? Probably nothing. But to be able to think, maybe I'll always think differently than this person sitting across from me, but to have an open mind, to be available to dialogue, I think is super important. So I wanted this book to plant that seed if it can.
What one different thing is in this book that you could talk about it's different than the norm?
That's different than the norm.
Yeah, you're going against the grain. What's one thing in here that you would pull out of it?
Well, one thing I really wanted to do is play with format a little bit. Okay. It is sort of like linear storytelling, but I have a lot of chapters in there that I feel like are a pause or a coming up for air that are just really light and really fun. Sometimes I feel like when I'm reading a book, I need to come up for air for just a little bit. So I tried to sprinkle some of that in there. So I think that's sort of a break with format from the traditional like memoir, or I don't even really know what genre this is. I think it's memoir adjacent. But it's just some more like topical humor, more nostalgia than I think is the norm for a book like this. But yeah, that's what I would point to. And then again, just really trying to hit the beats of humor whenever I'm talking about anything. I just didn't want it to feel too heavy to, no matter what the chapter was about.
So did you have, like for me, because I've been speaking my whole career, one of the things that I don't do well is I don't communicate well in writing. If I'm going to do something that I have to write, I have to speak it out, and then we translate it, and then we take it and try to make it grammatically correct and actually make sense, right? Because so when you read something that was spoken, it doesn't always seem to make sense. Did you have any trouble translating your personality and your humor into the writing? Was that easy for you?
That's really interesting that you put it that way, because I'm the exact opposite. I have a hard time communicating my point, feelings, intents verbally. It's much easier for me to write them down, to process them. So this felt much more natural to me than even like doing sketches, because it just, I don't know, it just flows out of me that way. But that's interesting to your point that some people are the exact opposite of that.
So when you do things on social, do you write them down first? Like, do you work out your ideas first, or?
It depends on the sketch. If it's a little bit more of a traditional sketch, I will write that out. A lot of it is just improv, though. Some of the characters that I do, I'm so familiar with now that it just kind of flows out.
All right, do one. You got to do one now. Now that you said it, you got to do it. Pick a character, do something.
Well, I do just any child busting into them like, Mom, you don't have any snacks in the whole house. Why don't you go to the store? And so that character just comes out very easily, very naturally. But anything else I do, I usually do kind of chart out.
Do you do this around the house, like with your husband, with your family?
They help me a lot of the time.
Do they?
I'll show them stuff and they're like, no, you got to go back and do this part differently. So they're all good sports about it. And, sometimes they'll quote something that I posted and I'll be like, what's that from? And they're like, that's you did that. Oh,
I imagine that is a great conflict diffuser.
Yes, it definitely would be. I get that. I get a lot of people who come up to me or, friends, or they'll send me a message of like, my kid said this, you have to put this in your next video. So it's definitely a good conversation starter.
What does your family think about the book?
They love it. They really love it. My husband is an amazing cheerleader and supporter. So he's like, we got to send one of these to Michelle Obama. Like sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're really excited. My kids are all planning to be authors now, which feels really good because
How old are your children?
School.
How
Sorry?
how old are your kids?
I have 3 boys. They are 11, 8, and 6.
Nice. That's a lot of work.
Yes, they are a lot of work. They're a lot of, I mean, I feel like I'm coming out on the other side of the like real trenches.
Yeah.
When we're, diapering and sleep cycles and all of that stuff. So now it's a lot more fun and hanging out and listening about, their different made up worlds and video games and sports and all that stuff. So I feel like I'm getting to reap some of the benefits now.
That's fantastic. I had 4 kids. They're all grown now. But I remember that once you got beyond 2, it didn't seem like you were just adding one. It seemed like you doubled what you had.
Yes.
Did you experience that?
Yeah,
it's going to be one more. And it was like, no, it's not just one more.
Right. And how many kids in your family when you were growing up, how many kids were there?
Just 2, me and my brother.
Okay, so this was like uncharted territory for you.
Completely uncharted. And I had 3 girls and 1 boy.
Oh my gosh. Where did he fall in the birth order?
He was the second.
Okay.
He was the second. 3 years difference between the first one and then him, and then 9 years. Let's see, was it 9 years? I think it was 7 years, I think, between him and the next 2. So there was a break in between the 2 sets. So then it was 2 girls back to back.
Catch your breath a little bit during that break. Yeah, you're definitely right. It felt when we adopted my youngest CJ, it definitely felt like we need more adults in this house. Like the work has, quadrupled, we haven't just added 1. But now that they're getting older, it's more manageable. It's still chaotic, but manageable.
And do they like your humor?
They pretend to, at least. I'm about to have a teenager. So I'm holding on to him laughing at my jokes for as long as I possibly can, because it's not going to last much longer, I'm sure. Yeah,
there'll be that break in there where it's like, you're embarrassing me, right?
Right, completely.
And then they'll come back and you'll be the hero after that.
Yes, I'll be looking forward to that.
So what's next for you now that you've got this book completed?
Oh man, that's the $1 million question. I mean, my greatest hope would be to write another one.
Really?
Yeah, I would love to do this again. The most fun part for me was actually writing. Like I said, that kind of just pours out of me. So I would love to write another one. And immediately after this is going to be a very big break, because I feel like I'm in a quick coma. How long did it take? Start to finish, I mean, truly it took about 4 years from
is that right?
Birth of idea to publish date. It took a super, super long time. And, that's just the process, right? I mean, it takes a long time to get it to the right hands and meet the right people and edit it 100 times. So maybe the next one won't take quite as long, but.
The editing, I'm never a fan of the editing, right? Like go back and change this and change this and change this.
Like, I said it the way I said it the first time because I liked it that way.
Yeah.
Why would I change it?
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to do a book tour?
I've done a couple of little stops. I don't know what else we'll plan for the future. I had a stop in Boston. I'm doing one here in Nashville, but there's no immediate plans for a real tour, but I would be game. So we'll just sort of have to see what the future holds. I'm hoping the book sells really well, so then that will sort of push us to do a tour.
Well, I would think so. I mean, I would think if you just keep getting on podcasts, it's going to sell. I mean, I think it's one of those things where people are going, you've got to get this book and read this book. It was fantastic.
Oh, so
kind of bringing this into a wrap here, I'm going to ask you a question. We like to ask, especially with what you did, I think this will be easy for you. It's called the Successful Mind Podcast. So we like to ask all the guests, if you could give our audience a successful mind tip, something that you do that works for you, that helps you grow, helps you deal with things, whatever you want, what would that be?
If I could give people one tip to help them grow and be successful, I think that I would have to say that you have to choose something that you're good at, but also makes you happy. You can't force a square peg into a round hole. So I have tried many careers. I've been okay at them. I have earned a paycheck, but it wasn't until I found something that really filled me up and made me better in all parts of my life that I felt driven to do more. So I know that's sort of like a privileged answer because not everybody can do that. But I think if there's any way to carve out space in your life to find that something that really makes your eyes light up, even if it's 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, and you can kind of snowball that a little bit, I think that you'll find success and joy in doing that.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I think that your book, like I could see somebody coming home after work, sitting down, having a glass of wine or something and reading it and just having a smile on their face, because that's what it did for me when I was going through it. It was like, this is a really cool book. It was a different approach. I haven't really seen this before. I mean, I was like, she's extremely creative because that's the way it appeared to me. And I hope that you just sell the hell out of it. I really do. It's fantastic.
Oh, David, thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I would love to have you back on when you write your next one. Definitely reach out and let us know.
I will. Thank you. I'd love to come back.
Fantastic. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind podcast. And if you like what you heard and you want to know more, go to davidnagel.com/free stuff.